Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Or of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about this magnificently entertaining fight between Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas. Spence becomes the unified welterweight champion of the world, hopefully setting up what should be a terrific undisputed title shot with Bud Crawford. He did call out Terence Crawford, so hopefully we finally get to see it. Before I get into the intricacies of the technical brilliance of Spence, because there were some brilliant technical things that he did, let's also address the elephant in the room, because there was a lot of controversy in this fight as well, okay? The sort of controversy that perhaps cost Ugas the fight. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some of the perceptions that have started to emerge online. So first and foremost, Ugas hurt Spence. We're going to get to the technical elements in a moment, and we'll talk about how the fight went in general. But first, let me just address this. Ugas hurt Spence, I felt, and I tweeted about this in real time, at the end of the fifth round. He caught him with an uppercut, and Spence was clearly affected, and he stopped throwing punches. And Ugas didn't jump on him. And at the time, I just thought, you know what? Probably great poker face from Errol Spence. Kind of like when Usyk got caught by Tony Bellew and stopped throwing punches. It happened with AJ once too as well in their fight. He stopped throwing punches and he got on his bike. And he had such a good poker face, they didn't jump on him. They didn't realize he was hurt, right? So it could just be that. But then the sixth round comes. And in the sixth round, Ugas hurt Spence badly, to the point where it looked like Spence was maximum two or three punches away from being stopped. One punch, potentially, if it was a big enough shot, could have ended it. He was hurt badly. The ropes actually kept him up, so it should have counted as a knockdown, but the referee did not count it as a knockdown. Instead, what the referee did, because Errol Spence's gum shield had been punched out, he stopped the fight and picked up the gum shield for it to be washed and put back in the mouth of Errol Spence. Now, a lot of people will see this as the protection of the promoted fighter. He was in serious trouble and the referee basically saved him by buying him time. That's how a lot of people will see it. There's also other people, because I tweeted and said Fight Film's video on this is going to be hilarious. And a lot of people, a few people messaged me to ask me, do you think this fight was fixed? Because Ugas did back off. And we'll get to that in a moment, right? Ugas lands. So he lands a big shot, smashes the gum shield out. Errol Spence doesn't know where he is. He's sort of looking for it. Ugas then decides, because the ref seemingly steps in but doesn't, like a semi-step in, puts his arm out but doesn't do anything. Ugas then throws a 1-2, lands big on him. By this point, the referee's backed off. He's not stepping in. That's when Spence's back hits the ropes. At that point, you're thinking, Ugas has got this. He's going to finish him. And Ugas stops throwing punches. It's a really unusual turn of events. Now, the reason I mentioned Fight Film is because Fight Film's a guy that believes that a lot of fights are fixed, and a lot of people, like I said, were asking me online, is this fight fixed? The way Fight Film sees it is that if you are not an A-side fighter and you want that big payday, you will have some sort of verbal agreement beforehand if you want to get your shot. Now, something that we know that happens, if you speak to guys in the sport, you speak to fighters, you speak to promoters away from cameras, they'll tell you something about journeyman. A journeyman will sometimes hold back. They won't admit it, right? But we use the word allegedly, okay? We've got to be careful here. A journeyman will allegedly hold back if he's fighting a prospect. Because if he feels like he's got a prospect seriously hurt, it doesn't actually suit him to go and knock that prospect out. Because the way journeymen make money is to fight consistently. And so they want the opportunity to get consistent fights. If you look tonight, for instance, on the DAZN card, the guy that was fighting Campbell Hatton has another fight booked in already for 2 weeks from now, right? So the way they make money is to fight often. If you're a promoter and you've got a young prospect and that prospect goes and gets knocked out by this journeyman, you're going to be very careful about putting in your next prospect against this journeyman, because if he's a potential money spinner, it's going to destroy you financially. Whereas the journeyman, maybe he's got a bunch of L's on his record. He's not marketable. You're not going to make money off him. You're not going to build him up. So a lot of the times, journeymen will fight to survive because they know it's in their best interest, even if they've got the opportunity to knock off a prospect. This is something that people don't really talk about in the sport. But if you go and speak to fighters away from cameras, you speak to promoters away from cameras, they might tell you these sorts of things happen. Now, at the highest upper echelons of the sport, most people don't feel that this happens, because the way most people see it is if you're Ugas and you've got a belt, you're going to get your opportunity anyway. If you go and beat Spence, the amount of money you're then going to make fighting Crawford's going to be so huge. What kind of payoff could they possibly give you, right? So most people will dismiss what Fight Film sees. Now, I'm not saying this was fixed at all, right? I'm just presenting you the argument that I know Fight Film's going to feel is the case, and a few people have come and said to me online, like I said, is this fight fixed? There are other potential alternatives. It could be that because Errol Spence set such a high tempo that Ugas felt when he hurt him that he got a reprieve. It's time now for me to get a breather, to use the analogy of another sport, say in football. If you're playing a team who's dominating possession and you're running every inch of that pitch to try and win the ball back and they're dragging you left and right, when you finally win the ball back, you might not counter-attack with the same level of vigor that your fans expect you to, because you've finally got the ball and you just think, I just need a breather. I've been running around everywhere. Give me a second to compose myself. Now, on 4 occasions, Ugas hurt Spence and didn't follow up. One of them was to the body. He landed a shot to the body and then seemed to... Spence again was clearly visibly hurt. And I'm tweeting about this in real time. He's clearly hurt. Why is he stepping off? What is he doing? So this is me saying it in real time. And Ugas sort of rubs his eyebrow and steps back. Now, he did have that orbital bone injury. Is this a case of him fighting on instinct? And so when he's affected Spence, he just needs a moment. Is he out of breath? Spence was doing brilliant body work, right? Was he unable to capitalize? He just needed to take that breath. I'm going to leave that for you to decide, okay? I can't be out here accusing people of not wanting to win a fight or not coming to win, because he was throwing some big shots and the punishment he accrued was real. So we know that Errol Spence was throwing some real work at him, and he was doing some brilliant work as well, which we're going to talk about, the technical elements of that. But the way it all played out, the way the referee seemed to step in to buy him time, by picking up that gum shield, asking him to wash it. We saw the same thing happen in the Golovkin fight last week with Murata. These things should not be happening. Okay, it's unusual. It is unusual, and it is going to get people talking. So I'm just trying to present to you what some people will say, and then I'm giving you the opposing argument as to why Ugas might have stepped away, so that people don't just assume, yeah, it was a fix. But you guys have got minds of your own. You guys decide what you think. From Errol Spence's perspective, he did great work, and let's talk about a little bit of that. In the preview, what we mentioned was the pattern of the fight pretty much went as I expected it to go. I said that I felt that Errol Spence would win the fight on points, potentially by late stoppage, but more probably on points. He did win by stoppage. Ugas was, of course, pulled out. He wanted to continue. So it really could have gone to points, and had it gone to points, Spence was outworking him. In the first round, we spoke about in the preview how Errol Spence is a sort of guy who's very consistent with that jab, works an awful lot with it. So his work rate's very high, and he'll come to the body, he'll bring that backhand in, he'll stretch him, and then quickly pull out and maintain that range when you try and get at him. And you saw that was what was happening in the first round, but Ugas was able, as we said in the preview, to try and time him as he's pulling out. And the question would be, how effective would Spence be at being able to maintain that range, come in, hurt him, and get back out before getting caught on his own exit, right? These are important aspects of the fight. Well, in the first round, you could see that Ugas was landing as Spence was exiting. So what did Spence do? While I explained also in the preview that when Ugas gets hit, especially to the body, he'll tend to cover up and duck down, and he won't punch with you. When you do your work, as you're pulling out, he'll let go of his shots. And what you saw Spence do at that point is say, okay, I know that if I'm going to pull out, he's going to be catching me. So instead, I'm going to stay in the pocket. But he wants me in the pocket. So what I'm going to do is, rather than just stay in the pocket, let go of ones and twos, and then he's going to go to work, I'm not going to stop throwing. Because if I'm consistently active and he doesn't really like punching with you, Ugas, and he likes to cover up, I'm going to get a lot of work off. When I'm pulling out to reset, he may very well catch me, but I'll be outworking him. And Ugas was indeed catching him on his way out. Ugas was shooting a really nice uppercut to the solar plexus. And so while Ugas was landing the heavier stuff, in the rounds where he wasn't affecting Spence, you have to be scoring those rounds to Spence. Because this is my method of scoring, like I always say. It's not just about the perception of who's landing the powerful shots. It's about who's affecting whom. There's no point in me sitting here telling you, oh yeah, Ugas is landing the bigger shots, so I'm going to score the round to him. No, because if Spence isn't being hurt, you can't just decide that it's a bigger shot. The fact of the matter is Spence was the one landing the consistent stuff. Also, Errol Spence's hand positioning is among the best in the sport. Golovkin's also in the conversation. You know, he's there as well. They put their hands in certain areas where so much comes off of the gloves and the forearms. And I spoke about this as well in the preview video where I was showing you how he throws a jab and he uses the shoulder to tuck the chin behind, how he'll bring his hands back up behind that high guard, bend forward, so there's not much to aim for. He covers it up. If you haven't seen the preview video, check it out and you'll see what I'm talking about. All these little technical elements that Spence brings to the fore. And so often when he was pulling out, you'd see these big looping right hands from Ugas, and they'd be landing, but sometimes they'd be partially landing. They'd be catching the glove and the cheek, or just the glove, and you'd hear this big thud. But Spence's hand positioning is so good that he's able to go to work on the inside, shoot shots brilliantly on the inside. He was getting his head right down by the belly button of Ugas, and sometimes his own shots were straying a bit low. He was warned about it a couple of times. He should have been warned about it a lot more, to be honest. It happened quite a few times. But he was putting himself in a position whereby Ugas felt like he just had to lean on him to stop him, to lean on his cervical spine. Really what you wanted to see Ugas do is, instead of being square up and covering forward, you wanted to see him drop that back leg backwards and point the shoulder towards Spence. The moment he's seeking to come in, put the shoulder there in his face. And that way you've created space for an uppercut through the pipe to the head. Instead, he was waiting for him to pull out. And as he'd try and pull out and come a bit tall to pull out, he'd shoot that solar plexus, that uppercut into the solar plexus. The point is, he just wasn't throwing enough. He's relying on the odd pot shot counter. Now that's fine if you're a massive puncher and you're looking to take a guy out. Well, when he had hurt Spence, therefore, it made it all the more unusual that he didn't jump on him. You've hurt him. There's your moment. That's what you're fighting for. You're not winning this fight on points, bro. You're getting outworked. You know that. So the minute you hurt him, you've got to be looking to put him to sleep. So when you're hurting him, why aren't you jumping on him? Is it just because you needed that reprieve because of the amount of tempo? If that's the case, all right, I get it. But then you're not really going out there trying to win. I've got to question the mentality of Ugas if that's the case. Because like I said, and I tweeted about these in real time, you can check out my Twitter thread. On 4 separate occasions it happened where he hurt him. And I get being gun shy when Spence is punching with you or right after you. But when he's clearly hurt and not throwing, it's unusual that you're not throwing punches back, man. Was he that intimidated? Did Spence put it on him that much? The one thing I will say is this. If Terence Crawford gets Errol Spence that hurt, Spence ain't surviving. But I do believe that Crawford is brilliant when he adjusts. Crawford will often be getting out jabbed. There are numerous times where Terence Crawford has been losing a fight and he's adjusted. He'll switch southpaw and then he'll start putting it on you. He'll go from boxing on the back foot to getting on the front foot, or he'll decide to box on the back foot and lure you in, jumping back. And as he's jumping back, he'll throw power shots. One of the best, if not the best in the sport at doing that, throwing big power shots as he's on the back foot. The reason that's such a fascinating fight, therefore, is because Spence is also very adaptable and makes adjustments, as he showed again today. But Spence is about consistency and outworking you. Terence Crawford's more destructive. On the inside, though, it's Spence that's more destructive. But Terence Crawford is a phenomenon when it comes to physical strength on the inside. A lot of it has to do with that wrestling background. And although he's not destructive in terms of landing big shots to bust you up on the inside, what Crawford tends to do is tie you up and nullify what you're doing on the inside. So we could end up seeing a case where Spence is the one landing more consistent jabs. Crawford's going to have to adjust and turn it into a war. Spence might want to say, right, I'm going to meet you toe to toe. Let's go to a war then. He might start to get tied up and not be allowed to work. And if that happens, is it going to be the big solid punching of Crawford, or is it going to be the consistent work of Spence? But then again, is Crawford going to be able to nullify Spence on the inside? There are so many question marks. How does Spence cope with the switch hitting? Is he going to be able to reset along the same lines? It's such a fascinating fight, one of the best fights in the sport. One thing I'll say, and I'll reiterate this, if Crawford gets Spence that hurt, Spence ain't surviving, right? Now, in terms of Ugas, he was asked about round 6, and he did say, yeah, I felt like the stoppage was close, but he had great powers of recuperation. Did he? How long did it take for him to recuperate and start throwing shots again? Had he been in there with a Bud Crawford? Had he been in there with a Conor Benn? And I'll bring a video about Conor Benn tomorrow, who's got glaring problems with these technical aspects of his game, right? Glaring problems. He's still very much a prospect for me. But when it comes to his physicality, his athleticism, his punching power, his willingness to put you in a position where he's fighting at such a frenetic tempo that your own technical abilities go out the window, that's second to none. If Spence was caught and hurt by Ben the way he was today, he's not surviving, right? It doesn't matter if Ugas is more technically gifted, bigger, stronger than Ben. Forget all that. If he's that hurt in that moment against Conor Benn, he's not surviving, bro. Right? Is he going to be able to hurt him like that? I don't know. It's a different debate, right? But the point is, as brilliant as Spence was technically today, he got lucky. He did get lucky. Now, why did he get lucky? That's for you to decide. Did Ugas choke under pressure? Did he freeze? Was he gassed? Did he welcome that reprieve? I'm going to leave it to you to decide. But great performance from Spence for 95% of the fight. But that 5% time of the fight, those 4 occasions where he was clearly affected, he was a lucky boy that Ugas didn't have more of a killer instinct. Let me know what you think. I'm going to bring a video tomorrow talking about Conor Benn and his display and some of the fights that occurred on the undercard as well. We'll also talk about Crowley, which happened on this undercard on tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.